somewhere over there. So yeah, I'm very glad to be speaking here. So let me just share my screen here and just hopefully, oh, should be 1 second. Okay, cool. Right, so this is a talk about developing on the XRP Ledger. I'm going to talk a little bit about Ripple, about the XRP Ledger, about the relationship between the two. And then about partway through, I'm going to actually drop into some code and we'll do just a little example of coding against the XRP Ledger, that side of things. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming stuff being developed on the XRP Ledger and some of the issues around kind of the environmental aspect of the XRP Ledger as well. So our company, Ripple. So Ripple employs over 500 employees in 9 offices globally. And the big thing that Ripple are working on doing is moving value as easily as we can move information, right? So if you think about it, I'm live streaming this video right now I'm based in Barbados, and this video stream is live streaming backwards and forwards between here and you guys over in the US. Yet if I was to try and send you a payment from Barbados to where you are now, it would still take 3 to 5 days for that payment to go through, right? And that seems crazy. It's 2021. I can literally stream video from the International Space Station, yet to send a payment, I don't know how far away you are, several thousand miles away, but still to send a payment that far will still take days to go through. So Ripple's on a mission to enable payments everywhere, every way, and most importantly, for everyone. And how do we go about doing it? So just to understand a little bit about the relationships of the entities at play here. So we have Ripple, the company that delivers RippleNet and RippleX. And there's 2 divisions within the company. So RippleNet is the payments network. This is the kind of traditional bank-to-bank payments network that is used in place in some cases of networks like Swift that you might have heard of. And RippleNet is significantly more advanced, more modern than Swift in terms of the kind of information that can be passed backwards and forwards. With Swift, when you make a payment, the payment goes through, you don't actually know when it reaches its end destination. They've started to add some tracking information in, but it's still based upon something written about 60 years ago. Whereas the RippleNet is a much more modern, much faster, much more efficient, much more reliable payment network. The XRP Ledger, that's the blockchain. This is separate from RippleNet. So RippleNet, like I said, is a network for banks. It's a private network that has the sort of compliance requirements needed by banks. Whereas the XRP Ledger is an open, decentralized, permissionless blockchain, similar to the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain, in which anybody can use it, build upon it, and make transactions and transfers around. And on that blockchain, the XRP Ledger is the digital asset XRP. XRP is the native asset of the XRP Ledger. Now, the 2 of them do interact because Ripple on RippleNet, they actually can use the XRP Ledger and XRP as a source of liquidity. And I'll talk a bit about how they use that for cross-border payments in a bit. So XRP is kind of the universal vehicle of value, right? The idea is that you can use it to move payment around because you can exchange it backwards and forwards for any other currency. And in fact, the XRP Ledger has a built-in decentralized exchange, and I'll cover that in a little bit as well. So some features of the XRP Ledger. The XRP Ledger is very cheap. We're talking 1/1000th of a cent for a transaction. It's very fast. Transactions are completed in 3 to 4 seconds. And it is very liquid. It's on over 100 exchanges worldwide, traded against over 200 currency pairs, including a lot of fiat currency pairs as well. So it's very good for interfacing with actual payments in the real world. Now, one thing to note about the speed, one of the big things about the XRP Ledger is that the consensus mechanism is deterministic in its finality. So unlike something like a proof of work blockchain like Bitcoin, in which blocks come by roughly every 10 minutes on average, but they can be a lot longer or they can be a lot shorter, the XRP ledger is 3 to 4 seconds, every 3 to 4 seconds. And a transaction, once it has been confirmed on the ledger and appears in the next block, that's it, it's final. You don't have to wait 6 or whatever number of confirmations you need on another blockchain. So the finality is deterministic, and so it settles much quicker than a proof of work blockchain. So the XRP ledger is ideal for this sort of new world of kind of decentralizing finance. And I mean that in the broadest terms, not just in the kind of the terms of what we now know as DeFi, but in kind of the much wider kind of context of allowing more global access to financial services. So the XRP ledger is the OG DEX, the decentralized exchange. It was first released in 2012, has been in continuous operation since then. And so the XRP Ledger DEX allows you to issue any tokens on the XRP Ledger and exchange them for any other tokens. As I mentioned about its performance, very fast, very inexpensive, very reliable for payments and settlements. It's been going, like I said, for about 10 years and not had any issue in that time. It's closed, I think it's close to 70 million ledgers, 70 million blocks in that time. Liquidity. So there's a lot of companies that are using the XRP ledger to source liquidity for payments. And so this can take various forms, but in the main form that Ripple are looking at, which is cross-border payments, what it means is that typically, if you were to try and send a payment from, say, Thailand to Brazil, then you would need to use a bank in Thailand and a bank in Brazil to make that transaction happen. And the bank in Brazil and the bank in Thailand would have to have a pre-funded relationship with each other, or a pre-existing relationship with what's called pre-funding. So the bank in Thailand would have to effectively have an account in the bank in Brazil that has some Brazilian real held in its name there, so that when you make a payment, that the bank in Brazil can just take some of that Brazilian real and say, well, it used to belong to the bank of Thailand, and it's now being moved to this customer account. So it's a system called Nostro and Vostro accounts. But the point being is that you need to have those funds already parked at the destination ready for the payments. Now, that might make sense if you're going between, say, the US and the UK. So many payments going backwards and forwards in there. It probably makes sense to have some pre-funded funds there because you're going to use them fairly regularly, and your payment flows are going to be fairly stable over time. Whereas if you're going a more esoteric corridor, like I said, Thailand to Brazil, there's probably not a huge amount of payment flows going backwards and forwards between the two. So the chances are the bank in Thailand doesn't have a relationship with the bank in Brazil. It's not going to be practical for it to have a relationship with the 180 or whatever it is countries around the world and all in banks in all of those countries. So likely it's going to use what's called the correspondent banking system. And that means that the bank in Thailand may have a relationship with the bank in Singapore. The bank in Singapore may have a relationship with the bank in New York. The bank in New York might have a relationship with a bank in Brazil, say. And each one of those banks along the hop there, along that route, will probably take a small cut of the payment as well. So you're increasing the costs as well for that kind of process there. And interoperability, I'm going to talk a bit about some stuff coming up with federated sidechains. Ripple were one of the first companies to look at interoperability, and as a spin-off from Ripple, there's an organization called Interledger and the Interledger Foundation. And Interledger's a protocol that's a draft W3C protocol for interoperability between different blockchains. So the XRP Ledger has some interesting built-in functionalities, and I'll talk a little bit more detail about them and show a bit of a demo of them as well in a bit. So the first one is issued assets. So again, the XRP Ledger was the first blockchain to allow you to tokenize other assets. So on the XRP Ledger, there is euros, US dollars, Chinese yen, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's all different currencies, both physical currencies, cryptocurrencies. There's commodities, there's people that have issued gold and silver on the XRP Ledger as well. So anybody can issue a token on there. So this is similar to, you might be familiar with ERC20 tokens on Ethereum and Ethereum compatible blockchains. Ethereum came out about 3 or 4 years after the XRP Ledger. In fact, the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, tried to intern at Ripple in the early days. And unfortunately, the US government wouldn't give him a visa because he was a Russian national. And just think what would have happened had that visa had been granted. The cryptocurrency world would probably look very different these days. But anyway, anybody can issue assets. You don't need a smart contract. It's native functionality on the XRP Ledger. And one of the good things about the way in which it works is you can actually set specific credit limits with issuers of tokens. So on something like Ethereum, anybody can send you an ERC20 token, right? And if you think about it, that ERC20 token is an IOU for some other asset, right? If somebody sends you wrapped Bitcoin, for example, on Ethereum, or USDT or something like that, USDC on Ethereum, what they're actually doing is they're sending you a token that represents a claim for that original asset back on its original blockchain or out in the original world, right? So if somebody sends you wrapped Bitcoin, what they are doing is they're sending you an IOU for that wrapped Bitcoin. So what you in turn are saying is, I trust this issuer of this wrapped Bitcoin to owe me a certain amount of Bitcoin. Now, the XRP Ledger allows you to define that. In fact, it requires you to define that credit limit up front, right? So it allows you to say, I will accept wrapped Bitcoin issued by this particular issuer or US dollars from this particular issuer, but I will only allow them to owe me up to a certain amount. So I only trust this US dollar issuer up to $1,000, for example. Now you might think, okay, what's the big deal with that? But if you think about it, anybody can issue assets on the XRP Ledger, right? So you each could issue US dollars and be an issuer of US dollars and use that to settle debts between each other, right? And, you know, a US dollar issued by RET, for example, might be, you know, that might be one issuer. You might have another issuer that is also issuing US dollars as well. And one of the features of the XRP Ledger is a thing called rippling, which is where the name Ripple came from. And rippling allows you to pay somebody indirectly by virtue of you both owing a central party. So think about what happens with a bank account, right? If you deposit $100 in a bank account, what happens is that bank effectively owes you $100. Right? They are holding $100. They owe you effectively $100. Now, if somebody else is with that same bank and they have an account with them, then I can pay that person by effectively adjusting how much the bank owes us. So I could say the bank now owes me $20 less and owns Melina $20 more. And in that way, I've made a payment to Melina, but without actually paying Melina directly. What we've done is we've adjusted the individual credits with the bank. And so, like I said, because anybody can be a bank, the original Ripple slogan from the original Ripple Pay project that actually predates Bitcoin back to 2014 was be your own banker. And it means anybody, you know, anybody in this class could set up and be owing backwards and forwards. And you can track those issuances backwards and forwards. And they can be for anything, right? So it might be for US dollars. It might be for some campus currency of some kind. It might be for something much more nebulous, right? So it could be, I'm issuing a currency, that a tokenized thing that represents whatever, an hour of back massage or something like that, or an hour of cutting someone's lawn or whatever it might be, right? And you can then issue those and move those IOUs, as they're called, around, right? Now, you can trade those because the XRP Ledger has a built-in decentralized exchange. It's the longest running decentralized exchange in the world. And unlike, say, an automatic market maker exchange you might be familiar with things like Ethereum, it's actually an order book exchange. So it's similar to what you would see on something like Coinbase or Kraken, in which you actually place orders and say, okay, I'm willing to sell 100 Bitcoin for 120 US dollars, right? And somebody else might be saying, I'm willing to sell 100 XRP for 130 US dollars. And they will sit on the order books, and you can place orders that will cross those orders and fill them in the same way that you would find an order book on somewhere like Coinbase. But in this case, it's actually decentralized and run across the network. And one of the things you can do is you can combine these two things, and you can do cross-asset payments. So I can say, I want to pay you US dollars, but I'm going to fund the payment with the euros I have in my account. And the XRP Ledger will say, okay, let's look at the order books, see if we've got somebody who's willing to buy the euros for US dollars, so that when I make that transaction, it buys my euros in turn for US dollars and sends the US dollars onto the destination. And all of that happens in a single atomic transaction in 3 seconds, right? And the other thing you can do is what's called pathfinding, which is if you have a more complex route, it could work that out. So I mentioned about, back massage and, mowing the lawn or whatever. You could say, okay, I want to pay this person in an hour of mowing their lawn, and I'm going to pay it with, an hour, some amount of time of back massage or whatever. And it can actually look on the ledger and say, okay, well, we can go from back massage to maths tutoring to US dollars to Bitcoin to mowing the lawn, right? And it will work out what is the best path to get from where you want to start to where you want to end. And all of that transaction can happen again in 3 seconds across the order books. So it's really cool. You can build some quite interesting applications on top of that. So show me the code. So I'm going to quickly jump into some code and give you an example of doing this. So let's see here. If I just switch over to, right. So hopefully you can see this here. So this is a Jupyter notebook. If you're not familiar with Jupyter notebooks, they are a way of running Python code in a web browser. So you can access the XRP Ledger with Python, Java, JavaScript. So there's a whole site, xrpl.org. And on there, if you go into docs and getting started, there we go. We've got Python, JavaScript, Java. Or if you want to write it in something that we haven't got an SDK for, you want to write it in Go or Rust or something, then you can access directly via WebSockets. But in there, you've got a number of tutorials and things there. So if you want to get started with it, you can go through there and actually have a go at it yourself. And the JavaScript ones you can actually run in the browser as well. You can actually click through and it executes them in the browser. So I'm going to walk through quickly some Python code here. We're going to go through and execute this and just give you a quick example of how easily you can work with the XRP Ledger as a developer, right? Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's built into the XRP Ledger, so you don't need smart contracts to do a lot of the functionality that many other blockchains you'd need a smart contract for. You can do it directly in the XRP Ledger. So quickly stepping through, to start with, that's just a bit of code there that I need to get the library to work within a Python notebook, so you don't need that normally. I'm importing the XRPL library, and there's on GitHub, in the XRP Ledger Foundation's GitHub, github.com/XRPLF, you will see the various libraries. So XRPL-Py, XRPL4j, XRPL.js as well. So Python, Java, and JavaScript there. And you can install this, the Python one, so with standard Python commands. So you can say pip install XRPL, and it will install it. So we import the XRP Ledger. I'll just run that. I'm not sure if I need to run that. We're going to create a client. We're connecting to the testnet here. So this is the address of the testnet network. And we're going to create a couple of wallets. So using this function here, generate faucet wallet. And so what that will do is that will create a new account on the testnet and fill it with some XRP. Hopefully, can you all see this code okay there? I need to make it a little bit bigger. Go one bigger here. So attempted fund address here, and we've got two funded addresses here. So I'm just going to copy that address. That's a address on the XRP Ledger. And I'm going to put that into a block explorer. So this is one called BitHomp, and we're on the testnet block explorer here. So it says testnet in the background. I'm going to have a look here, and you'll see that this has, when it loads up, it has 1,000 XRP there, and it's just been funded, just been created, this account. And similarly, I can look up the other one, the second one, and we can see it's got 1,000 XRP as well there. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to do a simple payment. We're going to make a payment of 23 XRP. So that's the amount there, 23. We need to construct the payment, and there's a payment model here in the XRPL library, and we need the address that we're going from. We need the amount, and we're converting the XRP to drops. So there's 1 million drops in an XRP. So drops are a bit like Satoshi in Bitcoin or Gwei in Ethereum. So convert it to drops there because that's what the API uses. The destination, so we're going to send it to the second wallet, and we need to include a fee. And that's 10 drops, like I said. So that's 1/1,000,000th of an XRP. XRP is currently about $1.20 at the moment. So yeah, it's a tiny, tiny amount. So we construct the payment. Next thing we need to do is we need to sign it. And we're using this method here, safe sign and autofill transaction. Bit of a mouthful, but what it does is it signs the transaction and it fills in a number of defaults in there. So there's a number of other things that we might want to supply in this initial method here, but we're going to go with the defaults, and this will fill in the missing pieces in there, the missing defaults in there for us. So we run that, that's going to sign the transaction. And the next thing we need to do is submit it to the ledger. So we've signed it, created it, we've signed it, we're submitting it to the ledger. So this is the bit that's now going to take about 3 or 4 seconds to actually submit it to the ledger, and it will then tell us that it's completed. It might take more than 3 seconds because it looks at the next ledger. There we go, that transaction's gone through. So we have made that payment. And if we go back to our wallets here, so if I go back to the first one that I had, you will see it is down, roughly, it's down to 977 because we sent 23 XRP. We use a very small fraction up for a fee, so hence why that's .99999, etc. But you can see this transaction here, and you can see we paid that 23 XRP, and we paid it to this account, which is our destination account. And if I click on there, you'll see we now have 1,023 XRP there. So that's kind of as simple as it is to make a payment on the XRP Ledger. So a slightly more advanced demo, I'm going to show sending an issued currency. So we're going to use Bitcoin here, and there is an issuer on the testnet. Somebody's created a service called issue.cash. And what this is it's just a faucet service on the testnet. If you're not familiar with faucets, they're just simple services that can just give you out some funds. So because we're running this on the testnet doesn't have kind of real XRP. It's just, money that you can play around with. You have these faucet accounts that can just issue you with some funds here. So we've got a Bitcoin one here. Now, I mentioned that you need to create a trust line to start with to allow us to receive those funds. So I'm going to create a trust line for this issuer. We're going to go through a similar process. We've got a trust set model. We're then going to sign it, and we're then going to send it to the ledger. So if I run that cell there, that will do everything, and it will print out the response on there. So creating a trust line from the first wallet to the issuer. And then we will see the response there. So I printed this out in full. There's lots of information in there if you want to dig in to see what's kind of in there in that response. But if we go back here and look at our first account, you will see we now have the ability to store Bitcoin in our account from that issuer. And we currently have 0 Bitcoin. So now I'm going to take our address and I'm going to go to this faucet. I'm going to just paste it in here and hit submit. And this service should go ahead and send me some Bitcoin that it is issued. Again, this is all dummy. This isn't real Bitcoin. And if we look here and if I refresh this, you'll see we now have 1 million Bitcoin in our account, right? So yes, dummy Bitcoin, not real 1 million, fortunately. So we've now got that account. What can we do with it? Well, let's send it again. Let's make a payment to the second account, similar to what we did before. So the second account, I've got to, before I create a payment here, I've got to create a trust line to the second wallet. So this is exactly the same code as what I ran before, but now looking at the second wallet. Because if I try to send it to the second wallet, it would actually fail. And it would say, we can't send it there because they haven't issued authorized a trust line to hold that. So we do that. That's now complete. And we will see if we go to our second account, we'll see now that 2 has the ability to hold Bitcoin there. So we've got Bitcoin. No, that's the wrong account. Which one was I looking for? What was our first one there? Right. So it has 0 Bitcoin in it now, and I'm going to make a payment. So I'm going to make a payment of 1,000 Bitcoin there. And if I run that, I'll send 1,000 Bitcoin from the first account to the second account. And again, it takes, just a few seconds for that transaction to go through. There we go. It's completed. I can go here, and if I refresh this, we should see we have 1,000 Bitcoin there. It was sent to us by the first account. If I go back to the first account, you'll see we have 1,000. We no longer have 1 million Bitcoin. We now have 999,000 Bitcoin. Okay, so that's just some examples of making some payments, and that was in Python. There's a very similar. The code will look, fairly similar doing it in JavaScript with the JavaScript library, and there's a Java library as well for doing that. So yeah, let's go back and continue here with the presentation. So what's coming up? There's 2 things coming up on the XRP Ledger. There's a thing called Sidechains, and Sidechains is the ability to create additional networks next to the main XRP Ledger, right? So the XRP Ledger was originally created for payments, and what is good for payments in terms of optimizing a network might not be good for optimizing for storing NFTs or for running smart contracts, for example. So the idea is you can have separate side chains in which you can have smart contracts on a separate side chain, or you could have NFTs stored on a separate side chain, or a central bank digital currency. You could have a private side chain that is run just within, say, a country, and then that connects to the main XRP ledger for any transactions going outside of that. And that's currently in developer preview at the moment. People can play around with that, start building stuff on there if they want. And the other thing coming up is a thing called hooks. So hooks is a smart contract proposal for the XRP ledger. It's a bit different to the way that, say, Solidity smart contracts work on networks like Ethereum and EVM-based blockchains. Hooks is a much kind of leaner, more efficient subset of that functionality. So it doesn't give you the full functionality of, say, EVM. It gives you, 80, 90% of that functionality, but is significantly more efficient, significantly faster. So, these hooks take nanoseconds to execute on the transactions, which is, very important if you are running a blockchain that runs significantly faster than something like one of the Ethereum blockchains. So you can think of hooks a bit like, say, if you've come across hooks on source control systems like Git or GitHub, and when a transaction comes in, when a payment comes into an account, if you've got a hook registered on it, then some logic will run. So you could have a hook that says, whenever any transaction comes in, if take 1% of the transaction value and send it off to this other address. Maybe it's a charity, Maybe it's an automated way of paying taxes on the transactions, for example. Or you could say something that says when payments come in, if my balance is above a certain amount, then siphon off a certain amount to this cold wallet or savings account that's separate, for example. So you can do a few, different things like that with hooks there. So it's not the full functionality of something like the Ethereum virtual machine, but it allows you to do probably sort of 90% of the things you can do on the Ethereum virtual machine. And bearing in mind as well that a lot of the functions that people use smart contracts for, you don't need a smart contract for on the XRP Ledger. So issuing a token, doing something like an escrow or multi-signature, transaction, multi-sig account, transaction, you don't need smart contracts for their native functions on the XRP Ledger. So this hooks just gives you that additional bit beyond that. And so hooks is currently being developed. There is actually a testnet, separate testnet for hooks that you can play around with at the moment. So the XRP Ledger, like I said at the start, the XRP Ledger is decentralized. The governance of the XRP Ledger is decentralized as well. So any new functionality like hooks, for example, coming onto the XRP Ledger needs to be voted on by the participants of the network. Now, Ripple don't control the XRP Ledger. We've got about 5%. We run about 5% of the nodes on the network. You need 80% agreement of the validator nodes to accept a change to the protocol. So, things like hooks, we hope will be kind of going up for a vote kind of at the end of the year, but it's entirely up to the community as to, when that happens. And a third thing, I don't actually have a slide for it, but just to mention as well, third thing that's coming up is native support for NFTs on the XRP Ledger as well. That's hopefully coming up for a vote to come onto the network soon. So the XRP Ledger has always allowed you to do NFTs by way of the issued assets functionality that it has, but this is sort of native functionality for NFTs that makes them distinct from fungible tokens on the XRP Ledger, which means that they can be stored more efficiently, they can be queried more efficiently, because there's an assumption that there's only one of them if they're a non-fungible token, or there might be a few of them if they're semi-fungible. But it's not like, US dollars where you'd be issuing, say, millions or billions of them on the ledger. So a little bit about sustainability and impact of the XRP Ledger. So the XRP Ledger was designed with sustainability in mind. It was actually built by a trio of Bitcoin developers back in 2011 who were aware of kind of the energy consumption of proof of work and how that was going to, escalate over time. And, sure enough, the amount of energy that Bitcoin uses is astronomical now. And there's kind of a bit of a trend at the moment to kind of measure the value of blockchains by the amount of energy they use or by the amount of fees they collect. The thing to bear in mind is that any fees that are being collected or any energy that is being used is being paid for by the end users. So you and I transacting on these blockchains are paying either directly or indirectly towards these fees and these energy usage on the networks. And that is basically economic value that is being effectively taken out of the network. So the Bitcoin blockchain needs, more people to be coming in continually to be paying in just to effectively keep the lights on the network, right? Whereas the XRP Ledger uses a far more efficient consensus protocol that doesn't require proof of work, doesn't use mining. And so that was kind of the big innovation of the XRP Ledger, was a way of having a decentralized consensus algorithm, but without requiring proof of stake to do so. And just some comparison numbers here. You've probably seen stuff like this before. So, a transaction, on Bitcoin. So the amount of the energy that Bitcoin uses, equivalent to, say, Portugal, cash, smaller, the XRP Ledger, significantly smaller than that as well. Obviously, these numbers are kind of changing kind of all the time. This was from March earlier this year. And breaking it down, you can actually look at it in terms of, say, CO2 emissions or the equivalent in gallons of gas. So a single Bitcoin transaction is the equivalent of about 75 gallons of gas for a transaction. Single Ethereum transaction, 2.3 gallons of gas. XRP transaction, 0.0006 gallons of gas, so significantly smaller. So again, looking at kind of the bigger picture of this kind of stuff, one of the big things that the XRP Ledger and Ripple can do is allow greater inclusion into the financial services, right? The big thing that Ripple specifically are looking to solve is the cross-border payment problem. At the moment, the average fee for remittances is about 6 or 7%, right? So if you make an international payment, on average, you'll be paying about 6 or 7% per transaction. Now, a lot of those fees are fixed fees, which means if you're trying to send, say, $100 and you're then paying whatever $15 in fees, that's a big chunk that's being taken out of that payment there. So it disproportionately affects those at the lower end of the economic scale. So what Ripple are trying to do is reduce that cost of remittances by getting remittance companies the ability to move onto a decentralized network in which they don't have to rely upon things like the correspondent banking network, the pre-funding of accounts that I mentioned right at the very start. So remittances I just mentioned about, decentralized finance. Like I said, the XRP Ledger has got a built-in DEX. It was probably one of the first sort of, DeFi applications, although you probably wouldn't call it sort of DeFi nowadays. It kind of existed before the term DeFi even really existed. But, the ability to transact back and forth, make payments, swap tokens and currencies without requiring a central party has been there for the best part of a decade now. And another way in which XRP can help is small payments. Because it is so cheap to transact, it means you can make small payments, right? There's companies like Coil that use XRP for micropayments. If you go to a Coil-enabled website, your browser can be paying the content creator directly instead of, showing you adverts. Your browser can be paying, 1/10 of a cent every second whilst you're reading a page, for example. And it really is cheap enough to be making those tiny transactions over and over. And so that gives rise to entire new business models, right? Because if you think about it, if the cost of making a payment is so high, then you're going to want the payments to be larger to be more economically viable, which means you're going to want to, make what you're getting in return larger, right? So you're going to batch up your goods or services, and you're going to send, you're going to wait until you can send a whole container full of something, or, send an entire album or entire month's worth of, newspaper subscription, rather than just allowing somebody to buy that one article, listen to that 10 seconds of a song, or send that one small item via, a courier. So digital payments are accelerating. Cryptocurrency adoption, as you know, is kind of growing. More and more institutions, individuals are getting more comfortable with using cryptocurrency. So this whole market for payments is increasing all the time. And so that's it. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take any questions people have. Let me know.
Okay, so we'll open up to the audience first. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to just raise your hand. Yep.
Earlier when you demoed the code, there was a fee on, I think, XRP, but not on the Bitcoin. Was the fee for using the XRP Ledger, or was it just for trading XRP?
The fee is, I could hear that. Yeah, the fee is for the XRP Ledger, and I believe there was a fee there. Yeah, constructing the payment. There's still a fee there for the payment for Bitcoin as well on there. So any transaction on the XRP Ledger, there is a fee, and the standard fee is 10 drops. It will escalate slightly if the ledger is particularly busy, but we're still getting nowhere near the kind of the fees you'd be paying on something like Ethereum or Bitcoin.
We had shown earlier that Ripple has libraries for Python, Java, and JavaScript. do you foresee in the future any more libraries being available that would be maintained by Ripple, or is that kind of up to the community?
Good question. I'm not sure if Ripple specifically are going to create any more. I know that I believe there's a Go library being developed in the community. There's a community member that's created a Ruby library, and trawling around on GitHub the other day, I think I saw a C# library that somebody's been working on as well. So, you know, really, we'd like to encourage people within the community to build things. And actually, we have a thing called XRP Grants. We've got a grants program, and we've just come to the end of wave 2 of this grants program. So we've just closed that grants application process, but wave 3 will open early next year. And you can actually go in here and look at the grantees and see those that were accepted from wave 1. So wave 1, we've actually awarded the amounts. Wave 2, we're currently evaluating. Like I said, wave 3 will be early next year. But there's all sorts of stuff here that's been funded. So somebody's creating a NFT metaverse and art game, some AI integration, a blockchain explorer BitHomp that I showed earlier, funding for some more work on that. Carbon credits on the XRP Ledger, an NFT gallery, interoperability with a accounting standard called ISO 2022. So yeah, there's a number of things here. You can go to xrplgrants.org and have a look through and see things that people are funding. Here we go. Yes, Go for ZERPs. So is a Golang SDK there. So that's being created by some community members in the UK. And so we have given them some funding for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the audience? Okay, so we've got some pre-submitted questions as well that we'll shift over to. So, sorry about that. So the first question submitted was, outside of cross-border payments, what utility or use cases is Ripple trying to add to XRPL? i.e., like, for example, smart contracts, NFTs, or stablecoins?
Sure. I mean, I think we've covered some of these in the talk already. So smart contracts, like I said, is coming up. That's actually being developed by a group called XRP Labs in the Netherlands that are working on this. So this is outside of Ripple's development that's being done there. Ripple are working on sidechains that I talked briefly about beforehand. Now, to be clear there, we're working on the mechanism to allow you to create sidechains. Anybody can then create a sidechain to do whatever they want. So it'll be interesting to see what's being created there by the community. So hooks, which is a smart contract functionality that's being developed by the community. Sidechains is being developed by us. The XRP LS 20 standard for NFTs. So if you go into the XRP Ledger Foundation GitHub within there, and where is it? Under, no, not issues, under standards. Here we go, XRPL standards. And look in discussions. There's been a number of standards here that have been proposed. And this one, XLS 20, is the one for native non-fungible token support on the XRP Ledger. And so that's being worked on by Ripple. But this standard is being developed in conjunction with the community. So if I scroll right the way down, as you can see, there's a whole load of discussion that's been going on with regards to this. So that's being developed by Ripple as well, and will be coming out soon. Stablecoins, like I said, the XRP Ledger was the first blockchain to allow stablecoins on it. And so there's already things like US dollars on there issued by Bitstamp, the cryptocurrency exchange, and by an exchange called GateHub. They offer US dollars and euros as effectively a stablecoin as well. And we're also looking to get other stablecoin issuers as well on the XRP Ledger. But the functionality's been there for a decade now, so anybody can issue them.
Okay, so another one that we had, so Swift has a large amount of transactions that go through per day on it. How does Ripple compare to that? And then the second part of the question, was, do you think RippleX will be able to reach the level in terms of like the amount of money transacted on the Swift network each day?
Right. Okay. So just to be clear here, so that, like I said, there's two networks. There's RippleNet, which is the banking network that kind of compares directly to Swift. In terms of how many transactions go on that, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I mean, and most of that is confidential information for the banks. There's about 300 banks and financial institutions on RippleNet that transact backwards and forwards, mostly in fiat currencies, very similar to Swift. So, RippleNet does a large amount of, transactions there. And then the XRP Ledger, so some of them use the XRP Ledger for liquidity and for sending cross-border payments. So SBI in Japan, that's a bank in Japan, can send payments to a mobile wallet service, like a Venmo type service in the Philippines called CoinsPH. And if you send Japanese yen to the Philippines peso, then that will actually go via XRP. So what happens is it uses a product called ODL that Ripple have called on-demand liquidity. It was originally called XRapid. If some of you have been around a while, you might have heard the term XRapid. So what that does, it takes Japanese yen, sells it for XRP in Japan, transfers the XRP to the Philippines, and then sells it in the Philippines, sells the XRP for Philippines peso, and then delivers it. And that whole thing happens in about a minute, end to end. And the important thing being is that Japanese yen doesn't leave Japan, and Philippines peso doesn't leave Philippines. So it just uses XRP for the actual cross-border bit, and the individual fiat currencies don't leave their respective countries.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got one final question here. So unless we have any more from the audience. So what makes you believe in the future of blockchain versus traditional legacy systems?
What makes me believe in the future of blockchain? Okay. Several things. One, I fundamentally believe that decentralized systems, especially for finance, are the future, right? I ran a conference in 2010. I organized a tech conference back in the UK, and we were selling tickets via PayPal, right, for this tech conference. We had 300 people from 30 different countries, and they started buying tickets from PayPal. And so suddenly PayPal saw all of these transactions coming in from all of these different countries, and it flagged some, fraud detection algorithm on their system, and they seized our funds, about 70,000, equivalent of about, or 70,000 pounds, so equivalent of about 100,000 US dollars, seized, a month or two before the conference. So we had caterers to pay, we had a venue to pay, all of these things, and we couldn't pay them because PayPal sat on the money and said, well, we'll give it to you in 3 months' time. Or like, well, the conference is in 1 month. So what good's that to us? So, I'm very much aware of that kind of, thing that happens with services like PayPal and Venmo that can arbitrarily block you payments. And in fact, PayPal actually suspended David Schwartz's account. David Schwartz is the creator of the XRP Ledger, and that was one of the incentives for him to actually create the XRP Ledger. So, I think that, blockchains have a big place to play in the big piece to play in the payments side of things. And payments, I think, is a much bigger thing than people realize, right? Now, Ripple has been working on payments for the best part of a decade. And some people will say, well, there's DeFi and there's this and there's that, and there's all these things. Well, that's great. But, like I said, it's still going to take me, at the moment, it still takes me 3 to 5 days to send money from where I am here in Barbados to you in the US, right? And that's ridiculous, right? We're still battling these antiquated payment systems. And payments are so universal. If we can have a more efficient way of doing payments, then like I said, it opens up completely different business models. Because if I can literally pay you 10 cents, cheaply and efficiently for virtually no cost, then I can pay you 10 cents and you can give me 10 cents worth of a service, right? I don't have to pay you $5 and then you say, well, you've got $5 credit of this service to use over the next month, right? So, it changes a whole lot about how, commerce works worldwide. And so I think that's a massive area that Bitcoin can, a blockchain, sorry, can play a big part of that side of things.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's actually, Rhett has a question.
Cool.
So let's say someone has a project they're wanting to pursue on the XRP Ledger. Where should they start? Where should they look for resources, and how should they kind of learn, the best practices?
So go to xrpl.org, this site, and this will give you some more background on it, some more information. Then there's a link up here to docs, and in there's stuff about concepts, there's tutorials, references, dev tools, all that kind of stuff that can help you out there. You can also click on the community link, and there's a number of bits there about the community. So there's developer blog, and there's XRP Grants. So if you want to apply for funding for a grant, again, we'll be opening in early 2022. If you were looking to fund a project, if you have a play around, if you think, hey, there's something really cool I'd like to build, then by all means, please apply for funding. We're also going to be running a number of hackathons as well. So about once a quarter, we'll run a hackathon. We ran one that's just finished, and we'll be running some more next year as well.
Awesome. I also know you have a Twitch. Do you want to plug that at all?
Oh yeah, sure. So twitch.tv/RippleX and on there I do a weekly Twitch stream, and so we can so yeah, there's a weekly Twitch stream there, and I basically get developers on from either within Ripple or from the community, and we kind of talk through what's being built. So this was actually from earlier on today, and this was a demo very similar to what I've just shown, but in JavaScript, and it was actually comparing a legacy JavaScript library we have and a new one, and we had kind of side-by-side views, kind of showing how to migrate from one SDK to the new one, and kind of comparing and contrasting differences between them with two of my colleagues there. So, and like I said, I get people to come on and kind of show what they're building on the XRP Ledger as well. So that's every Tuesday at 11 p.m. Pacific time. I will have to confess, I'm not sure what time zone Kansas is in. So, but hopefully you can work it out from 11 a.m. Pacific time on a Tuesday. But yeah, if you go there, twitch.tv/RippleXDev, and you can follow along. You'll get notification whenever we go live on there.
Yeah, perfect. I'll turn it back over to Rhett.
So I guess the biggest thing is, Matt, we want to thank you for your time. We appreciate it. I think we all learned a lot. I know I certainly did. A lot of exciting stuff going on at Ripple right now and on the XRP Ledger. So let's give Matt a round of applause.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thanks for having me. It's been great to chat to you all. And yeah, if you've got any questions, then like I said, pop by on the Twitch stream, or you can find me at Hammertoe, HAMMERTOE on Twitter if you want to find me there. Nothing to do with my feet. It's a phonetic corruption of my surname Hamilton. That happened many years ago. But strangely, nobody takes the name Hammertoe on social media, so I've kind of adopted it for myself, and that's me there. So cool.
Yes, very nice meeting you. Thank you, Matt.
Great. Have a good evening. Bye.